So, as 2016 is drawing to a close, people are already talking about their favorite movies of the year. And, even though I haven't had much time to sit down and do a full review or even watch a full goddamn movie in one sitting, I figured I'd go ahead and take a minute to talk about my personal favorites out of the movies that I've seen so far from the year. I haven't gotten a chance to see Rogue One yet, or Hacksaw Ridge was the name of the other movie that I was trying to remember. So yeah, those are two movies that I really want to go see, but just haven't had the time to do so yet. As for a couple of other movies that I have seen but haven't reviewed on this channel because, yes, life has been that distracting lately. Um, I went and saw Doctor Strange as well as Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them back in November, and they were really good, but I didn't like them quite well enough to put them in my top 10. I would definitely say that Doctor Strange is an honorable mention, though, and another strong one for me is Suicide Squad. I absolutely love that movie, but I do I do acknowledge that it is very heavily flawed in some ways, and in the end, it just didn't quite make the cut. Also, fun fact about this list before I get into it, there are quite a few horror movies and animated movies which are back to back with each other. Probably because I'm a serial killer. I won't question it too much though. Number 10 is The Conjuring 2. I remember back in 2013 when I saw the first Conjuring movie, I thought it was awesome. I could definitely see why a lot of people considered it to be sort of a modern classic among horror films. And honestly, I think that the sequel is even better. It the scares are just so much more memorable and more impactful. And I also love the cinematography in this movie. There are some really creative visuals here. Um, just an all around awesome scare show. Speaking of awesome scare shows, number 9 on my list is Don't Breathe. I love how this movie kind of turns the home invasion thriller upside down by having the people who are invading the home become the victims. I like the concept that nobody in this movie is necessarily innocent. It's just a really simple, well done claustrophobic thriller. Number 8 on my list is Zootopia. When I first saw the teaser trailers to this movie, I honestly didn't think it looked like much. I just kind of thought that it looked like this cutesy, meh kind of animated comedy. And, what I ended up getting was this very intelligent kind of social commentary. I have heard people talk about the message being really forced and the movie being a little bit too dramatic, which I can kind of see what they're talking about, but at the same time, I do think it is very well done. It's a great movie for both kids and adults, which is kind of a cliche thing to say about animated movies, but I mean, if it fits, it fits. Number 7 on my list is The Witch. This may possibly be the most polarizing film on my list. There are people who don't care for it. They found it to be too slow moving, which, if slow movies don't appeal to you, then don't bother watching it. But honestly, I admired the fact that it really took its time to just build this very tense and dread filled atmosphere. And when the moments of horror came, they just really hit hard. It's easily the most disturbing horror film of the year in my book. Number 6 on my list is Finding Dory. Yep, just as I said at the beginning, it's animation and horror back to back. But yeah, going from a really disturbing film to a Pixar sequel, why not? Um, just as I said in my 0 minute review, there's really not much else for me to say about it. I know that I'm in the minority, but I genuinely found this to be even better than Finding Nemo. It looks better. I think that the story has a little bit more of an emotional tie to it. The comedy was a lot better. And yeah, I'm just repeating shit that I've already said in the past, so let's move on. Number 5 on my list is Kubo and the Two Strings. Out of the three animated films that made my list, and no, I haven't yet gotten the chance to see Moana as of filming this. I would say that Kubo is the least family friendly, mainly because just like the previous films from this studio, it isn't afraid to scare the shit out of its younger viewers. It does have some very harsh moments. It might even leave your kids awake at night, but I would say that as long as you're okay with it doing that, it is a film that they can enjoy. It is very funny and touching and heartfelt with some grade A animation and just this really creative mythology. It's just an all around awesome fantasy adventure. Number 4 is what I personally found to be the scariest film of the year, and that is 10 Cloverfield Lane. Um, a lot of people may cite like The Conjuring 2 or maybe even Lights Out as the scariest film of the year, but and they did affect me, but I just don't find myself to be as affected by supernatural horror as I am by things that could potentially happen. And I mean, yes, this is in part a science fiction movie. And of course, the ending in comparison to everything that came before it is just okay. But I don't know. I just found this very claustrophobic environment with this incredibly threatening protagonist played by John Goodman to just be terrifying. Unlike It Follows from last year, this movie didn't give me nightmares, but it came pretty damn close, and I wholeheartedly applaud John Goodman for this top notch performance. By the way, I know that I also said that Don't Breathe was a great claustrophobic thriller, but I find that to be just a little bit harder to relate to since I've never robbed anyone's house. Moving on. Number 3 on my list is Captain America Civil War. After I came out of the theater from seeing this movie, I was honestly expecting to put this at number 1 on my list, but after a while, once my fanboyish excitement kind of died down, I did acknowledge that in comparison to these top two films, it is a little bit flawed. It doesn't have quite as much rewatch value, but really in this case, it's not saying much. It is still my favorite film out of the MCU so far. It's able to tackle these very dramatic moments with some very well done and intense action scenes, and at the same time, it is a genuinely fun comic book movie with a lot more jokes than I expected that hit really well. It's just a great superhero movie. Number 2 on my list is Alleluia, the Devil's Carnival. I understand that this film may not have actually been viewed by the grand majority of you. Um, Many of you may not have heard of it, which, if you haven't, I have filmed a full length review for this if you want to go back and listen to that. But anyway, from an intellectual standpoint, I love how blasphemous this movie is in pointing out how conceptually flawed heaven could be as a system. But more than anything, it's just a really, really fun movie. I love the music in it. I love the comedy. It even manages to do some dramatic moments really well. During the final act, I genuinely got goosebumps. As fucking corny as that may sound. And I love these really fun, eccentric characters. And considering that I didn't find the first movie to be anything special, it is no small feat for this to have become one of my favorite movies of the year. And then finally, number one on my list is Deadpool. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you were expecting to see this movie somewhere on the list. Notice how I specifically said that Captain America 3 was my favorite film out of the MCU so far. When I have to think about what my favorite Marvel movie is, though, it would have to be Deadpool. It is so much more different from anything that we've seen in the cinema before. It's the funniest movie that I've seen all year. Ryan Reynolds just does an excellent job playing the main character, and it's a pretty awesome kick ass action movie. Holy shit, Hollywood, you can actually make money with an R rated movie. You don't have to make it PG 13 to make money. How about that? But yeah, honestly, I know I'm not saying anything about this movie that hasn't been said already, but yeah, there you go. That's my top 10 list of 2016. Once again, that's just for the movies from the year that I've seen so far. If I had gotten the chance to see Rogue One, I'm sure that it would have been on the list somewhere. Who knows? But whether you agree or disagree, you can let me know in the comments. If there are any other films from the year that I haven't mentioned or that I haven't even reviewed, you can let me know what they are in the comments, and I'll get back to you on whether or not I'm interested in seeing them. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope y'all have a good one.